Okay, this is a follow-on from the previous video. I'm actually practically going to show you how to code some of this HTML into a web page. I tend to use a program called BBEdit. Okay, I set up in Dreamweaver and then move to BBEdit, and I'll show you that later on. But I'm going to use a normal text editing tool. There it is, text edit, and use it in plain text format. Okay, so I can see the coding properly. And as you see, I've already set up index.html, saved it out to my desktop and loaded it inside Safari. This is just going to help me through the tutorial, so I can just simply refresh it and show you what's happening. Okay, as I said, the coding structure is important. I'm going to type in the first one, which is HTML. This is the basic structure for an actual web page. Okay, the open and close tags. Saying that, I'm going to move these apart, and this is where all the content's going to be inside those. Okay, if I save that, nothing's going to happen obviously on my web page, but if I look at the view source, you'll see it's starting to add the content. Okay, and I'll show you how that works as we build up. Then, as I said in the documentation on the videos, things have to start being nested. The first two are head and body. Saying that, you don't actually need a head tag. Okay, HTML pages can live without them, but just for the purposes of doing a beginner's introduction to this, I'll include it, but I'll explain why you can and cannot have it later on. Okay, so this is your normal structure for a HTML page. Refresh again, nothing happens because there's nothing there. First thing we can do, and I can tell you, I'm not going to put any of the differentials between XHTML and HTML as a coding structure. I'm just going to simply put in basic syntax like I've been showing you. It will still work. It won't be defined in a clear way for the internet, because obviously you'll have to have a definition for XHTML and HTML. But saying that, you don't actually. You can leave it all blank like this, but it will create problems. Okay. So the first thing we can add, as I showed you on the actual video, is the title for the page. You just simply type it like so. And what I'm going to do now is just put, say for instance, Rob Snow's home page, like so. I'll expand this out so I can keep most of the syntax on one line so you can see it, like so. Okay, so that's how you write it. The actual stuff that's going to appear in your browser is actually in between the tags. This is important. Anything that's inside the diamond tags doesn't appear as coding. The things outside it appear as actual things on your web page. Okay, so I'm going to save that out and show you what happens. Basically, where it says index.html now, it will say Rob Snow's homepage, like so. Okay, that's just a way of actually defining the title of your page. Remember before I also talked about meta information. I'm just going to put one in. Meta, let's call it name equals keywords, like so. Oops, and then put content equals, and this is where you put actually a list of different words that can define, let's say, I'm only going to do a few for now because I don't want to go on. Designer, HTML, whatever you want to do that's appropriate to you, you add into this section. Okay, like so. And then you do this. Okay, this means it's set up for XHTML. If you get rid of that, do that. That's set up for HTML. I'm going to keep it to that standard because I want to keep it all clean and set up for what we're going to do in the future, which is set up XHTML websites. So if you start learning this coding, then it'll help you understand how it works. Okay, so that's how you set up a, I'm going to just make that a little bit smaller, all this text, so it tries to stay on one line. Okay, so that's your normal meta tag definition, like so. Okay, I'm just going to save that out again. Again, nothing's going to happen on your web page, but you'll notice it appears as a section on your web page source code. Alright, so I'm going to go back here. I'm not going to put a link in because we're not going to actually link to anything at the moment. I'll do that on a different one when I start talking about linking CSS files, JavaScript files, etc. But you would put a link in this part here. Okay, I'll leave it blank for the time being. Now what I'm going to do is move to this section. You remember some of the things we talked about. The main one, which is an old-fashioned way of designing elements, is in what's known as tables. Most people use divs now, and I'll talk about those in another video because they have more design structure and capability. But basically the way you do a table is, again, you start defining it as a nested element, making sure that the mother tags appear like so, and then you create a section like this. Okay, now there's differences between typing it by hand and typing it by using Dreamweaver. Dreamweaver automatically puts certain code in. Like if you notice it doesn't say anything about the border size, the cell padding and spacing and the size of it. This all gets automatically placed in when you use Dreamweaver. So I'm going to do that in a minute, but I'm just going to show you what a table looks like. So basically I've got to define some table rows like so, and again this is even though it's a child of the mother, which is table, it's also creating itself as a mother as well, because it's going to have its own subcategory inside that, which is TD. With TD it's slightly different. These are actually nested in a bracketing fashion, whereas TD, if I just put in, say, Rob Snow again, you can actually keep it all on the same line, and it actually makes it a little bit simpler and easier to understand how things work. Saying that, look what's going to happen when I save this and put it on the page. All you're getting is basically something that just looks like you put a normal piece of text in. If I do select it though, you'll notice it creates the cell selection, which still doesn't look that appropriate at the moment or obvious, but what I'm going to do is literally copy this. This is how you define table data. What that's going to do now is create two cells next to each other, like so, okay, as columns. Yeah, do you remember what I said? This is rows and this is columns. So if I just change that so you can see the difference, let's just change it the other way around. Snow, comma, Rob. It's a good old school fashioned way of doing things. Okay, save it, refresh. You notice there's two names next to each other, but if I select it, yeah, you'll notice there's a little gap in between. That's defining the table cells. Okay, what I'm going to show you now is how to do it so it's got more than two rows. To make life easier, I'm just going to copy paste this instead of typing it out constantly. So what we have is that's creating two rows. I'm going to create 4 altogether, and you'll see why this can become confusing, because you've got a long lot of syntax and coding, and it's very hard to follow sometimes. Okay, just to make sure we can see this, I'm going to invent some other names. So you can Tim Snow. I don't know if there is a Tim Snow. Okay, like so. Bob. Let's call another one Frank. So you can see the differences. Okay, like so. Save it. What you'll notice now is it will do exactly the same, but there's 4. So if I highlight everything, you'll notice there's gaps between everything, and this is the actual differences between the cells. Okay, you'll notice though it's all been defined, the actual size of the piece of text, so the cells don't get any smaller than the text involved, and you can't do that in tables. You can do it in divs in some respects with a little bit extra coding, but for now you'll notice what happens here is it's shrinking to the size of the actual text that's being assigned to it. Okay, and this is the biggest one, Frank, so all the ones above it have to fit in accordingly. Yeah, so there is gaps. Okay, what I can do though, if I go back to where it says table, I can change this to say height equals, let's say, call it 200, and width equals 200, like so. And what that does is it makes it bigger. Okay, so you notice now the cells are actually creating extra space even on the ones that have the longest definition. Okay, so that's how you do that. What I can do, just to quickly show you as well, if I put border equals 5 pixels, okay, what it should do now is put a border around you. It's a very old-fashioned style, but I just wanted to do it to make you see how the actual table works. Okay, you can see it's cut into little blocks. These are the different cells. Okay, you notice that there's no formatting and style associated with these at the moment, and I don't really want to do it in this section. I just want to put the syntax of the basic elements. But if I carry on doing this, there's a term called Cellpadding. I'm going to put that to, say, let's take 10 for now. Okay, and cell spacing equals 10 as well, like so. If I save that out, what you notice now is the letters have been pushed away, yeah, from the side, and that's what's known as a padding. The spacing is how much space is actually put away from each of the different cells. So it's got 10 and 10 and 10 and 10. Okay, you can change that and vary it, and I'll show you that, but you have to do it through a little bit of CSS coding. Okay, so what I'm going to do is show you if I keep these sections, yeah, but get rid of the height and the width, what should happen now, if I save it, is that all these cells should expand to the full size of the frank one. Yeah, and it's got a 10 either way around it. So you can see how you can quickly manipulate these things, but it is restricted by the actual fact it's in a grid structure. Okay, I'm just going to go through some of the other coding that we did. I'm not going to do all of them because I'll do it in a more in-depth one later. But you remember what we did is put bold on, say for instance, this one. Yeah, if I save that out, you'll notice the first one now becomes bolder. I'm going to do the alternative one on this one, which is strong. So, as you can see, it just does the same thing. Right, on the bottom ones, no, on this one, I'm going to put italic. On this one, I'm going to put M. Like so. Save. You'll notice what it does is exactly the same thing again. Okay, just different variations on the coding structure. Finally, I'm just going to put U here, like so. You'll notice that'll have an underline. Yeah. What you can do is, if you say for instance this one, you want to have all these functions, what you can do is structure it like so. But what you have to realise, if I put strong first, like so, and put strong at the end, if for the next one I do is italic there, I'm just going to put I, and I'll do the proper way of doing it, actually, M. Okay, you have to have the close in the nested section, which is in between the strongs. Okay, so the M one has to then go there, okay, to make it work. And if I put the U for the underline, it again obviously has to be structured that way. Okay, if I save that out, you'll notice out of all the qualities, yeah, and correctly formatted and shown. Okay, two more things quickly. In this one, I'm going to put a horizontal line in, like so. You notice it appears, and it appears to the full length of the available space. You remember it's got 10 either side, so that's 100% of the actual cell space. Okay, and that's what a horizontal line looks like. And finally, I'm just going to make this one into a link, so you have to put href equals HTTP. I'll talk about all this syntax for the actual linking later as well. Okay, robsnow.org. Close, and close the tag, and then you have to close the A tag, like so. Alright, and press save. That's a HTML version. If you wanted a XML, you put that. Okay, I'm just going to keep it HTML. So it's a combination of the two, and I'll make sure I define which is which, okay, in a minute. So if I just update that, you'll notice it goes blue with the underline, which creates a link. And also in the bottom it tells me that if I click on it, it basically goes to my web page. It does it in the same window as well. Okay, so that's the basics of HTML. I want to talk about a few other ones, but we'll do it as we define it, and I wanted to just include the table to get you to understand how complex it can get. Okay, but we'll talk about it in another video, the other basic HTML coding.